Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jimmy Alvarez, and I'm a technical marketing manager here at Red Hat. And today we're going to talk about Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes and what's new around version 2.3. But first, let's start with a small recap about what is Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes. Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager for Kubernetes offers end-to-end management visibility and control to manage your clusters and application lifecycle, along with security and compliance of your entire Kubernetes domain across multiple data centers and public clouds. As you can see here, we focus on four major use cases when discussing Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes, or ACM. The first being the multi-cluster lifecycle management, being able to manage end-to-end all of your Kubernetes clusters, whatever those might be on-prem or on the cloud. Drive all of the compliance based on policies all for all your Kubernetes clusters. Also, having the ability to have advanced application lifecycle management, whatever that might be, being an application that's built within ACM or an application that's built through another tool such as Argo CD. And then finally, having that observability into your clusters to make sure that they're optimized and healthy. So when talking about ACM and what's new around 2.3, we basically start with the enhanced multi-cluster deployments. The first thing that you'll notice within ACM is that the UI has been completely refreshed. We now use Patternfly within all of our ACM contexts to make it more similar look and feel with the OpenShift console. We also allow you to import and manage Red Hat OpenShift on Amazon, or ROSA as we call it for short, as well as OpenShift and IBM Power. You can also run the ACM Hub on IBM Power. An ACM Hub is the cluster where ACM actually runs. As a quick reminder, ACM runs as an operator within an OpenShift cluster. We also allow you to provision OpenShift clusters on Red Hat OpenStack, leveraging Advanced Cluster Manager for Kubernetes. We also have enhanced a lot of the cluster lifecycle support with the addition of cluster pools. Cluster pools allows you to provide a rapid and cost-effective access to OpenShift clusters on demand and on scale. To accomplish this, cluster pools maintain a configurable and scalable number of OpenShift clusters in a hibernating state. They're especially useful when providing or replacing cluster environments from development, continuous integration, and even some production scenarios. We also have the ability to work and scale out your worker pools, whatever that might be for extra capacity that you might need for your applications, or if you need to kind of scale it down, we have the ability to do that as well. Cluster sets allows you to group resources of clusters and provide some kind of RBAC to it. You can enable specific roles, whatever that might be, as an administrator role, or just to observe and view what's going on within your clusters. We also have the ability to deploy Submariner directly from the ACM console. So if you remember in previous versions of Advanced Cluster Manager for Kubernetes, like 2.2, we introduced support for Submariner, which is a multi open source tool that provides direct networking between two or more Kubernetes clusters in a given managed cluster set. We also have the ability to discover and import clusters from cloud.redhat.com. So a lot of our customers, they started with cloud.redhat.com. And so now all of those clusters, if they wanted to bring them into management, you can leverage ACM to do that as well. You can also update the cluster version directly from ACM. So if you wanted to upgrade, say, from a 4.7 cluster, OpenShift cluster to, say, a 4.8, you can go through the UI and update that very easily. No need to longer navigate to the OpenShift cluster in order to do that. From an expanding the portfolio and embracing the open source, we have great news. Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes is now fully open source. And you can go ahead and check out all of the source code here at open-cluster-management.io or our Git repo. You'll be able to see all of the code that's available for ACM. The Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform integration is now fully GA. So for those of you that have worked with ACM 2.2 in the past, might remember that we introduced this integration on the application lifecycle via pre and post hooks. Well, that integration is still there and is now fully GA, but we also have enhanced it across the whole product line. So now from the cluster lifecycle, you have the ability to create pre and post hooks, and you can also create them from the governance, risk, and compliance. You can trigger remediations based on specific rule violations, or you can run them once, or you can run them continuously. The choice is yours. From an application lifecycle perspective, we now have Red Hat OpenShift GitOps, or as the upstream project is known as Argo CD. We have a full tight integration with it, meaning if you have applications that you have built using Red Hat OpenShift GitOps or Argo CD, you're able to manage those applications directly from ACM once you onboard that cluster and becomes a managed cluster within ACM. We also have a lot more policies that we have added. We have FIPS policies, we have operator install policies, and many, many more. Highly recommend you to take a look at our GitHub repo. You'll find the link at the end of this presentation. And then finally, from a multi-cluster observability perspective, we have a tight integration into the Cluster Connected Experience, or CCX, which allows for you to see all of the information that you see within your cloud.redhat.com from Insights. Insights is a product that allows you to kind of have that visibility into any kind of issues for your clusters. Now you're able to kind of see that directly from Advanced Cluster Manager for Kubernetes. You can also automatically configure alert forwarding from a managed cluster directly to the ACM cluster, hub cluster. This allows you to have a tighter integration to do alerts much easier. So you can create alerts like you see here and have them sent via Slack for somebody to take a look at. We also have made different enhancements around the long-term metrics, as well as being able to recall rules for customized specific metrics that you might want to specify. There's also a brand new dashboard that we introduced from Grafana that we'll take a look at here during the demo. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into a demonstration of ACM 2.3. All right, so the first thing that we want to see here within the product is that you'll notice that we have this brand new sidebar. So this sidebar has a few things that we kind of break it down. So we break down obviously the home page where you can see the welcome and the overview screen. We are currently on the welcome screen. You can also expand and see your cluster, your bare metal assets, and your automation, which is used for Ansible Automation platform. Then you have your applications, your governance, and your credentials. If we navigate into the overview screen, you'll notice that the UI looks a little bit different. It's a little more refresh. You'll notice that now we have this cluster issues, which is the integration with Insights. So if you're entitled to Red Hat Insights for OpenShift, then you're able to connect ACM with Insights, and then you're able to see all your CVEs and any kind of critical issues. From a Grafana perspective, there's a few enhancements here. So the first thing that you'll notice is that we have a brand new dashboard, which is called the ACM Resource Optimization. You can select here whatever cluster you want to look at, and then you can see that there is some optimization metrics here that allow you to kind of make some this definitions to see if you wanted to go ahead and perhaps add a new worker or remove it or etc. Navigating into the cluster screen. So the first things that you'll notice here within the screen is that now we got rid of the actions button. So in order to get that back, you gotta select a few clusters and then your actions come back. Notice that there are the regular actions that have been here for a while, which is detach, destroyed, as well as upgrade. The new ones that we have now is select channels, hibernate clusters, and resume clusters. So if we wanted to, for example, go ahead and change the channel, so you'll see here this the local cluster, which is my hub cluster with ACM is running. I can go ahead here and select the channel, and I can change my channel and go to a 4.8 channel, save it, and then if I do that, then I'm able to actually perform upgrades further into that older release. So very cool to have the ability to do that directly from here from ACM perspective. Navigating into cluster sets. So as I mentioned earlier, cluster sets allows you to group cluster resources to allow you to have role access control as well as managing or add-ons like Submariner. So you can see here that I have a few clusters that I've added. So you can see here all of my managed clusters on this cluster set. I can come in and add Submariner right from the UI. So I can go ahead and select install Submariner here. I can select my target cluster. Could go ahead and click next. I can configure, some settings here if you wanted to change your port, your gateway, and what your cable driver is, and then we'll go ahead and click install. When we click install, it will automatically start going and deploying the Submariner add-on directly into your cluster. And it allows you to have that direct networking between your clusters. All right, if we look at our managed clusters here, you can see again all of the clusters that are managed within this specific cluster set. I can take a look at the access management, and I can actually do that based on a specific users or specific groups that live within my hub cluster. I can also select the role. So currently there's two major roles, so either a cluster admin set or a cluster set view. So obviously an admin will allow you to perform any kind of administrative task within that cluster set, or cluster set view is just for observability. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. We also have the ability to do cluster pools. So cluster pools is just a rapid and effective way to keep your clusters on demand and on scale. As you can see here, I can create multiple different cluster pools. I can go ahead and scale up my cluster pool. So say if I wanted to change my cluster pool from 1 to 2 or 3, and click the scale button, it's going to automatically start creating these clusters for me based on my previous configuration from my first cluster pool. So you're able to come in here also and update the release image. So if I started saying building this cluster with a older image and I want to upgrade, it's also a great way to being able to kind of test your application, right? Because you can create a cluster pool, you can build your application for a specific version, and then change the version and build new clusters that look exactly the same as the old ones. They're just running in the new version. So it allows you to kind of have all of that flexibility directly there. You can also perform actions like obviously destroy them and update them. You can go ahead and claim that cluster as well. So you can claim this cluster and remove it basically from that cluster pool. You also have the ability to wake up from hibernation and or resume any kind of clusters directly from here. Now we're getting into the Discover clusters. This allows me to import any clusters that live within cloud.redhat.com, and I can just simply go ahead and select the cluster, click import, and generate the command. Note that for 2.3, we have the ability to enter the server URL and API token in order for us to automatically run that and execute the import command without you having to do it manually. Of course, you still have the ability to do it manually. And then once you do that, then the cluster will become an imported cluster part of ACM. Another thing that I quickly wanted to point out within this is that our creation cluster builder looks a lot different now. You'll notice that you have your providers, right? OpenStack, of course, being one of the newest addition for 2.3. But you can go ahead and select your, say, AWS here, select my credentials, and then you notice here on the left that you have multiple different menus that you can kind of navigate through to select, to do specific kinds of configuration. Or you can go ahead and add an automation template. So you can go ahead and new template. So I can say Ansible template, and we can go ahead and select your credentials. You can have multiple Ansible credentials configured. If I go ahead and click next, then you have the ability to configure your pre and post install jobs. Now notice that we do this in two different phases on a cluster lifecycle. We can do it during the installation phase or the upgrade phase. Okay, we can run either pre or post jobs in either of those phases. So you can go ahead and add your new Ansible job here and say I'm going to do hello world. Okay, you can just configure any type of variables and set all that up here. So you can continue to add as many as you want within your Ansible jobs. So I can go ahead and add as many jobs as I want, and they will run in the order that they're presented here. So if you configure them to run, the specific order, then they're going to execute in that specific order. You can, of course, pass variables from one job to another if you wanted to, do all the tasks. So as you can see here, the use cases for this are quite massive. You can do things like integrate with a ticketing system. You can, open firewall port rules or configure load balancers, anything that you can imagine. Ansible Automation Platform really allows you to enhance it so you can integrate with any of those third-party kind of legacy tools within your data center. All right. So that's pretty much it from our cluster lifecycle. We talked a little bit about the automation part. Again, the automation here is where you create and build those Ansible automation templates. This only applies for the cluster pre and post configuration. So keep that in mind when you're configuring that. Now, from an application lifecycle perspective, you'll see here that they now have these new icons that basically show you if the application is a grouping of applications that was deployed, say, in an using Argo CD. So you can see here that you have two two different clusters with the same application. One is within the local cluster and the other one is in another unknown cluster, right? So you can actually go ahead and click on that and see your application, manage your application. So you can go ahead and manage your application from Argo, or you can just go back into your ACM. So you have multiple options when you're configuring that. The biggest thing, key takeaway here is that you can take all of your applications that you have built within your Argo CD context and bring them into ACM for further management. Argo CD, it's really doesn't do well with scalability when it comes to applications, so ACM helps fill in those gaps. For my creation of an application, you can just go ahead and build a new application just like you did before. A couple of things that have changed here is that obviously this is a little bit different to match the rest of the UI look. And of course, if you wanted to go ahead and configure your URL here, your branch for your GitHub application, right? You can select all of that just like you could before. The biggest change here is that now obviously the automation a pre-hook and post-hook with Ansible is selectable from here. You select your credentials, right? And from there, you can go ahead and configure your jobs to do your pre and post configuration as well. So pretty straightforward. Right. And then finally, from a governance perspective, a few enhances around here, mostly noticing that, we have this, the ability to configure the automation, Ansible automation platform. So within here, you configure it per policy. So each individual policy will get its own execution into Ansible. So you can go ahead and select your credentials here for your Ansible tower. You can select the job that you want to go ahead and run, and you can select any extra variables, right? You can see here that we have three ways of doing the scheduling. You can do it manually. So this will basically run once. Once it detects that there is a violation, you can also do it the run once mode, which again, once a policy there is a violation, right? And then finally, you can have it completely disabled and not execute if you wanted to. So you can go ahead and save that, and then once you save that, you'll notice that the job automatically gets added as under the automation column here. But from a look and feel, this is very much the same. We have just kind of enhanced a little bit the visibility here. You can see the status of your policies, of course, as you could before. And of course, you still have your wonderful overview screen here that allows you to kind of define between the standards or your different categories and sort through those as well. And then one more thing that I wanted to show is the credential screen. So the credential screen is where you manage all of your advanced cluster manager for Kubernetes credentials. You can go ahead and click on the Add Credentials button, and you can see you can have credentials for cloud providers, for data centers, as well as Ansible Automation and OCM through cloud.redhat.com. And of course, all of them are very different depending on what you select. So for example, for OpenStack, you have to provide specific information here. So all of them are customized specifically for all of that. Thank you so much for watching the video today. I hope it was informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out through any of our channels.